Morning, everybody. I'm sure all of you are already thinking about lunch already. Your brains are probably, a little bit low on sugar right now. So we're going to try to cover this ground. We only have 30 minutes. We have a lot of stuff to talk about. I got some great, very, very smart people on this panel. We got Ylan Kazi, Director of Data Science and Machine Learning at the UnitedHealth Group. Really cool stuff that they're doing with healthcare and machine learning. We have Anthony DeLima, Chief Technology Officer and Head of Digital Transformation at NEORIS, is one of the show's partners. We have Sara Rushinek, Business Technology Professor at the University of Miami, and Dr. Alex Liu, Chief Data Scientist of International Business Machines, otherwise known as Red Hat. Okay, fantastic. We'll wait. Thank you, doctor. Okay, so let's get right into this. So, cloud-based machine learning and performing predictive analytics using input from sensors on Internet of Things devices, such as health wearables, is fairly new, and are popular applications of this emerging technology. What other, good low-hanging fruit opportunities for early applications are there right now? What do you guys think is the hottest stuff that could be applied to this right now?
Well, I think first of all, it's an interesting conversation around AI, and I think that when we talk to clients, we typically split the conversation in two areas. First of all, it's the commercial side, it's everything around applying AI in financial services and healthcare, manufacturing, optimizing supply chains. So certainly AI and machine learning have a significant impact in there. But the other side for us, which is interesting, is what the future holds. And if you looked at the evolution of technology probably over the last 100 years, 100 years ago, the Wright brothers took to the skies. Within 50 years, the processing power of microprocessors grew about 1 billion times. The size of transistors today are basically about 14 nanometers, which, curiosity-wise, is about 14 times the size of a DNA molecule. So if you looked at the speed of processing and the capability around that, the implications for us in the future are significant. And I would venture to say that life as we know it today, 10 to 15 years from now, will be significantly and dramatically different. And I know that's quite a statement, but the technology is evolving at such a rapid pace, and artificial intelligence is moving away from being self-taught by humanity, but actually teaching its own. I think the game of Go, for instance, where we shifted from teaching machines how to play the game of Go to them actually creating neural networks has become something phenomenal, right? And I think it'll mark the future in terms of artificial intelligence taking the next step. So I think it's moving away from us teaching AI to do what we call narrow AI tasks to being more general purpose, and that will have a significant impact on our lives.
Yeah, you just take a look at the Hubble Space Telescope, which they had a reboot last week. That thing runs on an Intel 4625 megahertz processor that's taking all the, the images of, the cosmos right now, and we rely heavily on that machine. The stuff that we have on your iPhone's about 1,000 times easily more powerful than what runs the entire Hubble right now. And that's just conventional x86 technology that we technically still use. That's not even counting things like, a quantum bit computing and adding that to the equation. So once that starts to evolve, it's really going to be wild. Dr. Liu, what do you think?
Yes, and in terms of you mentioned that the low-hanging fruit and utilize IoT, because someone mentioned before this panel, billions of devices will be connected, which will generate huge amount of data. And I think another important development that we should look at is the satellite data. Right now, over 1,000 satellites and flying over us, and more are coming. And all this are generate a huge amount of data. And I think the next challenge is basically to connect all this data together. And the satellite data, the IoT data, together with the business data we have already, and then connect them will be easily and generate good insights. For example, we can use the satellite for a business forecast, which has not been utilized yet, and it should be easy to use. And also, you can use the satellite data for crime and the control and other things in connect with the IoT data. I think a lot of them are coming.
Ylan, you're with UnitedHealth Group, and obviously, you guys have a huge interest in keeping, your customers healthy, having, continuing their quality of life. I mean, I myself, had an interesting health issue, with my Apple Watch over the summer. I wrote an article about it. It actually detected, as part of Apple's heart study program, that I had atrial fibrillation. And I obviously had it for years and years, had no idea. And it's not the kind of thing that you can easily detect, right? You need to have specialized sensors. You need to have algorithms to find this kind of thing. Well, now that, I have this, they were able to correct the condition to me. I had a procedure done in August. They did an ablation on me, and now I have normal heart rate. But had I not had this watch, I could have, within 3, 4, 5 years, I could have ended up with a stroke, So what are the sort of things that you guys are doing in the field is to try to provide a more, because typically patients have been in the dark. We don't know what's happening to us until an event happens. How do you predict? How do you add predictive technology to sensors in healthcare to to be more proactive about a customer's health and their policies?
I think that's a great question, and your example about your Apple Watch really potentially saving your life, right? I think that's what not only technology companies but also healthcare companies are trying to do currently and into the future. And in terms of sensor technology, pretty much everybody in this room probably has a cell phone on them. That really can act as kind of a main hub, right? Like it can track your movements, it tracks your location. You may be able to add new software to it that is more sensitive. So detecting patterns that could tell you, are you becoming unhealthy? Are you, do you have a disease or multiple chronic conditions that can be remediated by a physician? So I think just starting with the phone in our pocket is probably the lowest hanging fruit. And in terms of healthcare and what UnitedHealth Group is doing, it's really trying to make this as seamless as possible and helping out our members. And instead of having it where you go see a physician or you obtain healthcare because you're sick, it's really trying to make it more preventative and thinking about health as a whole human being.
Yeah, I mean, there's some incredible technology that's in play right now. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the company, AliveCore, that makes the EKG sensor that came out even before the Apple Watch had it. The single lead ECG sensor that's used in these little credit card sized devices to check to see if you have atrial fibrillation, if you have abnormal heartbeats. They're actually coming out with a device that has 3 electrodes, so it gives you 6 leads of data. And they are actually able to detect blood conditions based on heart lead information, such as hyperkalemia, which is high amounts of potassium in the blood that's potentially kills thousands and thousands of children every year. So that's an AI application, that's based in the cloud, also on the watch hardware itself, on the physical hardware itself. We're going to have access to tremendous technology where doctors are going to be able to proactively know when we're experiencing an issue, and that's going to be tremendous.
I think one thing I'd like to add to that, helping doctors be more proactive. There are studies that I read very recently about being able to detect the state of a person's health based on their voice patterns. And I think something like that can be very valuable. If you're calling into your doctor, calling into your nurse, and there's an algorithm that can detect different illnesses based on your voice, that's extremely powerful. And I think it sounds far-fetched, but it's already starting to happen today, which is very exciting.
Professor?
Yes, I'm also in the business school in business technology, but also in health informatics and medicine. And you can see how everything is merging together. I think everyone's role is going to change based on AI. And you can think about in healthcare, you can think about the actual physician, a radiologist, for instance, is going to change completely. First of all, radiology can be done throughout the world now. So if I'm in the midnight shift, you don't want to be in the midnight shift. You can take somebody overseas to be on that midnight shift. But also in radiology, we can then look at the patterns. And what you're going to need is then the radiologists, maybe you won't have them basically reviewing slides, but putting in the knowledge into the knowledge-based systems. So I think that a lot of times we talk about tech. I think every profession is going to be changing from law to marketing. Everyone is going to be using and they're going to have to renegotiate their own roles in the environments that we're in.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about the kinds of diseases that require a lot of imaging, right? You take a look at things where at CT, right, where you're looking at for example, brain patterns or structures that form in the brain as a result of things like, if we're looking for Alzheimer's, right? I mean, those are the types of conditions that we need thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of participants,
And
right?
picking up those little micro, basically, goals and micro symptoms that you
Right.
would never pick up. So you can think about the wearables.
Yeah, because
that are gonna
machines can do it just so much faster
faster.
than a human with eyeballs.
And then they're
can.
learning.
Yeah, every single time that they do it, they're learning. Okay, great. So where should we focus on identifying the use cases for artificial intelligence so that we can create smart interactions with customers, employers, and business partners? What should be the ultimate end goal, do we think?
Well, again, quite an interesting question. I think, there are table stakes right now in terms of how to apply AI in healthcare and financial services, manufacturing, et cetera. And there's a number of companies that have a number of inventions that are out there. For us, the big question is, where does this lead us, right? And if you looked at general purpose AI and where that's heading, basically, it would be naive for us to believe that artificial intelligence at some point will not surpass human intelligence. It's a reality.
That was Dr. Hawkins' main concern.
Yeah, and Dr. Hawkins, I.G. Goods in the mid-1960s coined the sentence that says that the first intelligent machine will be mankind's last invention. And I think that as futuristic as that may sound, it is a reality. If you looked at the processing power that a human brain requires, today it's about 100 quadrillion transactions per second. The Taihen 2, which is the Chinese supercomputer, processes transactions at about 33 quadrillion transactions per second. So it's order of magnitude more capability, more intelligence, processing capability than the human mind has. And you combine that with the future, then the question becomes, what's humanity's position looking forward 10 to 15, maybe 20 years, but not more than 15 years, right? And in that scenario, there's quite some discussions around what we call the merge scenario, which is, will synthetic neurons start to merge with biological neurons? And what does that mean in terms of humanity's evolution? What does it mean in terms of the use cases that brings forward? So I think the question, more than just the table stakes of optimizing logistics and supply chain, driving automated trading and financial services, do 360-degree customer views. It's really where's the end game for humanity. And I think that it would be naive again for us to believe that sometime, but not the next 10 to 15 years, synthetic intelligence will far outstrip humanity's capability for processing. The question is, of course, what's the difference between intelligence and wisdom, and how do we apply that? How do we make sure that things remain in check? But we just don't know at this point in time how far synthetic intelligence will evolve and what the impacts will be for specific use cases.
Cool. So Dr. Liu, IBM obviously has been doing a lot with artificial intelligence over the last 20 years. We all watched, Watson, kick Ken Jennings' ass in 2011, in every way possible. but there's a lot has come, a lot has happened since 2011, especially since we saw Watson. What is IBM doing now, to identify use cases for artificial intelligence, with its customers and its partners, and its own employees? I mean, IBM is a huge company. What are you guys looking at as sort of like, what are you guys really focusing on, and what verticals, and the overall use case for artificial intelligence?
Thank you, very good question. And in terms of technology, as you know, like IBM has been investing a lot in AI. Like 20 years ago, IBM's Big Blue beat the human chess champion. That's where it started. Then, as you mentioned, 2011, the Japanese show, and IBM has a machine. And recently in March, and IBM released human debate and the machine debate, right? Debate machine that debating against the human champion, and the judges actually gave the machine a higher score than human. So there's a lot of the development. And
So our
right now,
politicians will be robots?
robot, I think right now is that robot, like
Would
you
be an
mentioned,
improvement.
And the robot,
I'm for that.
yeah. Robot, I think, will become smarter and smart, especially for specific tasks, and like the chess, Go, and all those things. But overall, the IBM strategy is to create not only AI, and also mostly IA, means like individual intelligent assistant to help human, right? Because like, basically we need to empower human to serve human, not to serve machine, right? And so there's a lot of work around that area. I think, in the future, perhaps, then technology will enable every one of us to hire intelligent assistant for very different kind of tasks, for cooking, education, and even maybe someday each one of us can send one and intelligent assistant to the space to explore, right? And to meet our curiosity and other demands. And on the other hand, I think for the specific, the business, for the customer service, and there's a lot of room for change and for AI and projects. For example, if I go to some big company, and they usually will direct me to some place, say, okay, frequent asked question is here. Then you type a question, they will direct me to some kind of Wikipedia, some stuff. Most people will say, bye, I don't want to go there, right? I want to be a customer, not a student. And so this area, there will be a lot of work needed to create really intelligent assistant to help and the customer, and also will bring some very huge impact and for the corporations and also for the customers. So there's a lot of work to come in and to help us as intelligent assistant, in my opinion.
I think in terms of value, it's really, any AI solution that can save time and save money, that's really where we can start prioritizing what's going to be created. I think from a healthcare lens, who really likes to go into a doctor's office and sit there for 25 minutes? Raise your hand, right? Nobody likes to do that. And I think there are ways where you can predict how long the previous appointment is going to take. Like that's something that is super low-hanging fruit that would just create this seamless experience for the patient. I think another point was brought up about human intelligence and machine intelligence, and I think we're just really starting to define both of these areas and really trying to determine what are machines just exponentially better at versus what are humans better at. And I don't think it's necessarily a threat to humanity or a threat to our intelligence, but I think we're still trying to figure out ways to use technology efficiently, while at the same time also figuring out what is it that humanity is really, really good at that can't really be outsourced to technology yet.
That's really cool. So let's think about, moving forward, what we need to sort of make the next major, quantum leap. What are the critical tech components that will accelerate the evolution of AI? I know we talked about qubits and things like that before. What is the overall impact of the evolution of artificial intelligence on companies, communities, and humanity as a whole? I mean, it's kind of an existential question, right? But it's a very big question.
I would say that, even before you start with technology or data or whatever, it really has to start with educating the populace on what machine learning is, what artificial intelligence is. I think people have this image that it's going to turn out to be this very evil thing, and it's going to take over the world, and it's going to make us all extinct. But at the end of the day, there has to be a better message around what can it do that's very positive to humanity. How can it save lives? How can it improve our lives overall? So I think it starts with communication, and then I think with technology, we see this exponential growth curve in terms of efficiency, systems, simplification. I really see it the next, probably 10 years, it's going to be at least $1 trillion industry, if not more, the way that it's moving.
Let's flip this on its head a little bit, because we talk about teaching machines how to do things, right? Because that's kind of like what we're trying to do. So, Professor, what can we learn from machines, right? Can they teach us anything to be better people, or more educated, more intelligent people, for that matter?
I think so. I think when you were talking about education, first of all, when you said that we need to teach people AI and what AI, machine learning can do, I think most people are using technology and they're not even aware that it's in the background. So I don't know if we need to teach per se AI and machine learning, but we need to be able to relate. And what I see is there has to be a combination. For instance, when you think about our world, think about the shootings. I mean, it's like every week. And then everyone says, oh, besides the guns, they say, we need mental health, right? We need mental health services.
Correlation and causation, right?
Right, but the whole idea is, how are you going to get any of these mental health services? A lot of times you can think about machine learning as being chat boxes, and I need to reach out. Many times we can even think about our regular stress that many times our machines can help us. A lot of times you can think about meditation. Now there are a number of meditation apps. And what I wanted to also think about is just how we're educating. That whole idea of education, the traditional education has been what now? It's been online or traditional classroom, and that needs to be flipped over the head because there's still something on being here. Isn't it, why are we here versus just seeing this online and we can all be in different locations? There is something that I meet you person to person, and sometimes I'm telling my students when they think, what drove the internet was what? Anyone know? What really drove the internet up when it first came out? Porn, right? Pornography was the first thing, right, that really drove it. And then everybody was not afraid, wow, we're not going to have sex anymore because I see you. How many people are parents, right? How many people have parents, right? So that sex didn't go away, but basically maybe it can solve some issues. It's the same thing with education, that we can just flip it around and bring in, for instance, people into a live classroom. Basically, you don't have to stay for an entire, let's say, MBA. You have so much experience. If you want to get an MBA, you can take almost micro credits for that MBA and come in remotely throughout the world. So the whole area, same thing with medicine, right? It's not how long do I need to wait in the waiting room, but really, do I need to see a physician now? Is there a way that I have a mole on my hand? And I'm always worried, is this cancer? Have it basically sent through the processors of computers and say, you know what, 99.9% that isn't, or this looks like melanoma. And then at that case, we can get some changes done there, and then we can bring in the physician, either remotely or for surgically. We're using AI even in the surgeon's operations.
Yeah, I mean, I think, just to strip down your question a little bit, because I think it's a phenomenal question about, how technology will drive change. And I encourage everyone to take the time and really dive into the game of Alphago that was developed by Google's deep learning group. And I think Alphago, and I mentioned it before, but Alphago truly was a interesting milestone in the evolution of artificial intelligence. And the reason I say that is that most often when we look at artificial intelligence, we talk about teaching machines, right? And Alphago was the first instance in our existence where rather than teaching a computer to play the game of Go, it started on the notion of tabula rasa, which basically means that, all things being equal, our experience and perception is what drives our evolution as a being, right? And if you looked at AlphaGo, basically it was the first time that we found a way to create algorithms and neural networks that in turn created their own neural networks and continued to evolve, right? So it was not teaching AlphaGo how to play the game of Go, it taught itself, right? And in the third iteration of AlphaGo, which basically beat its opponents 100% of the time, was all self-taught, self-evolving, and basically played the game like no one else before. So I think that we do have to start moving away from the notion of us teaching artificial intelligence. I think the reality is that we're moving away from narrow AI. Yes, Siri and Alexa understand us better over time. Google Translate gets better at translating. Amazon is great at suggestive selling and buying, but quite honestly, we're moving past that scenario, and I think, again, 10, 15 years from now, the technology will have evolved to such pace that it'll probably outstrip our capability to do computational capabilities. So.
Wow. So we have a couple of minutes left, so let's go into the closer before they throw us out of here. So what really lies ahead for artificial intelligence? How far are we from, significant breakthrough advancements? Where will the biggest impact occur, and what vertical industries will it happen in?
I think the healthcare to me is healthcare and education to me are the most fascinating ones. I think education by far, to me is the most exciting one, because now we're able to fine-tune education in ways never done before. We're able to understand, the principles of teaching for the individual, and consequently are able to fine-tune how we teach. In the area of healthcare, other than the table stakes that we've kind of mentioned in this panel, we are getting into the era of neurolinking and connecting to our neural cortex. By the way, we already connect computers to the human mind. Patients that have Parkinson's disease are already being connected up to computers to be able to control their behavior. So that will continue to evolve. So, we see great opportunities around healthcare and also education. The rest, obviously, financial services, manufacturing, all will continue to evolve and leverage AI. But typically, it's around, becoming more competitive, stripping out costs, et cetera.
Yeah. I think another area to look at is probably the space exploration. Next year is the 5th anniversary of man and stepped on the moon, and we know it's very expensive, also very risky to send people there, but relatively it's easier to send a machine to the space, which will perhaps someday will help us to find a new place if we cannot save the Earth, right? So there's other things to look into.
I have to say that the two that really come to mind, obviously healthcare, but also from a government standpoint. So healthcare-wise, just actually having personalized medicine. So having this phone that becomes, kind of like our pocket doctor, at least before we have to go in and see a real doctor. I think that could be very, very exciting for all of us. From a government standpoint, I think, finding ways to, very ethically use AI to make the government more efficient, right? Wouldn't it be nice to have an AI DMV and not have to worry about all that stuff? That would be great. But imagine what it can also do for, helping democracy to succeed not only in the U.S. but throughout the world. I think there's probably a huge opportunity for that, and we're just kind of discovering where it is.
I think also in finance, I know even at our institution we're doing the fintech, and a number of, again, I'm thinking our roles as human beings are going to need to be flipped. The idea to see of the wealth management, to be able to do the automated trading systems. Now you can think about it, 80–90% of even the stock market is done by machines already. So much is done there, but where are we going to refine? And I think it's going to be a team effort. I think what we're going to need to learn is to be collaborative in a number of different ways, to work on teams where I have my physicist, I have my mathematician, I have my finance person, I have my physician, I have a number of people, and around the world. Think about it even in healthcare, where Chinese medicine, it can be attributed to Western medicine, and you can do a much more testing. You can already see that I'm able to then prognosticate and also forecast what's going to be, and predictive analytics, I think, is going to be further into it.
Everybody, I wish we had another hour or so to really dive into this stuff, but everybody, thank you for coming, and I think it was a great panel. I'd love to be able to do it again. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.